Issa. Okay. Issa?
Yes.
Asa Galloway.
Issa Galloway defines the mission.
Kind of a show that will put people on the edge of their seat.
Because it leads to the future with a more sophisticated approach.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the show. I'm kind of torn about this video today. It's something I didn't want to make, but I knew in the back of my mind I was eventually going to have to. I didn't know it was going to play out this way, but I guess what I'm getting at without beating around the bush too much is I don't really like to call out actors in my own community unless they're doing something really stupid or something that I just so strongly disagree with that I got to. Because our community takes enough abuse and a battering, from the outside that we don't need to do it to each other. However, I think this rises to the occasion, and it is about the arrest of Brother Sami Hamdi. Now, any of you who've been watching my show for any amount of time, especially in the early days, right after the election, I did a whole lot of videos, doing analysis of how the election went down. And I have pretty clearly and very strongly disagreed with Brother Sami on his political analysis. But this takes it to a step that I think is just too far, and we got to get into it. Now, again, like I said, this is a person who I think has done some great stuff. I do have mixed feelings about It's Sister Rabia Chaudhry. And the thing that's got me about this has kind of made me upset is this post here. She writes, this guy, not even an American. Yeah, I've made this point before when criticizing Brother Sami, but I did it in a totally different way. Let's get the full quote and then I'll break it down. Not even an American, but toured America in the year leading up to our election, lecturing Muslims and progressives not to vote for Kamala Harris because he said, we survived 4 years of Trump, and for the sake of Gaza, we could survive 4 more. Now, for any of you guys that are nodding your head in agreement with Sister Rabia, I'm just going to say it, shame on you. Because if you're going to let your partisanship, your political background, your commitment to, one particular party over the other, in this case, establishment Democrats, blind you to the point where you're going to agree with what she says next, then you've lost the plot. You can't see the forest from the trees. What Sister Rabia said then was, well, go ahead and survive it then, Sami. First off, you're the one who said he's not an American. He's visiting America. Secondly, he did not cause the Muslim community en masse not to vote for Kamala Harris. And in fact, the data shows that it's kind of 50-50 how the Muslim community voted. And even more than that, the Muslim community did not sway the election. Gaza did. And what you can say about Sami, and the thing that I actually praised him for, while I disagreed with so much more, his political analysis I thought was so wrong. He did encourage Muslims across the world to keep on posting about the genocide in Gaza, making social media reach, I don't know how many people, but to the point where we now have social media being bought up by pro-Israeli actors and censored. So Gaza had an impact on the election. The American Muslim vote, not so much. And not only that, but when she says not even an American and then now survived the second term, it's so problematic. First off, when I said that I disagreed with Brother Sami's analysis on politics and I mentioned he wasn't an American, it's for a totally different reason. The reason was I was angry at my community for taking the words and the advice of someone from outside the country so seriously or giving it so much airplay and consideration when you had people with actual skin in the game. Now, it's actually proof that Sami has skin in the game because he's touring the nation again and got arrested and looks like he's going to be deported soon. But the issue here with this comment from Sister Rabia is that she makes it sound like he has no business, talking about American politics because he's not even an American. Well, first off, let's just get the obvious out of the way. American foreign policy, and hence our elections, affect everyone across the world. Obvious. So everyone's going to have opinions about it, sister. Secondly, it sounds more like you're mad, and making an assumption here, so God forgive me if I'm wrong, but it sounds more like you're mad to me that he, a stranger mostly to the Muslim community, I'd never heard of him before until the election, gets the ability to tour the nation by some groups that, like him, want to make Gaza a bigger issue. And all of a sudden, more people are listening to him than you. And you had spent all of this time building your bona fides with establishment Democrats and supporting Kamala Harris in the DNC campaigns. And that's in spite of all the things like not even allowing a Palestinian speaker at the Democrat National Convention, and on and on and on. And let's finish this quote, because we do need to examine not just how Sister Rabia's take is horrible, but we also need to examine how the Trump administration continues to slow walk and normalize things that are a threat to all of us, which is why I'm making this video, because as much as I really object to this take, I also need us to see the trend and to act on something that's much more important. But Sister Rabia continues. Well, go ahead and survive it then, Sami. Now that he's arrested, again, forest from the tree, sister. If you're so partisan that you're celebrating that someone's being harmed because of what you think was their political stance, how are you different than the liberals who started celebrating when Gaza was suffering after Trump was elected? It's not different. In fact, here it goes. He caused incredible damage to this country by helping Trump get elected. No. Again, look at the data. Muslims broke about 50-50 for Trump and Kamala, and barely the Green Party was even a factor from what I can tell. He's no different than the white folks crying online after voting for Trump and then losing all their government benefits. Okay, so that tells you a lot about how she thinks and sees the world. I have no tears for people who broke this country. There are plenty of others who deserve our sympathy. Yeah. Okay, so the us and them and the political tribalism runs deep in our community. I think way too deep. And I think we need to kind of get into a better situation. Now, to do that, I want to make sure that we are getting the full context. So I'm going to play a story that I think does a good job of introducing the issues and the arrest of Sami Hamdi. And then we're going to break down how some other stories have came out and show how this is all leading up to something that could be very dangerous for all of us. So without further ado, let's get into this video clip.
Developing tonight, Homeland Security confirming a well-known journalist has been detained by ICE agents at San Francisco International Airport. Officials are accusing Sami Hamdi of supporting terrorism and undermining American national security. Crown 4's Lindsay Ford has the story for us.
Sunday, 35-year-old British journalist Sami Hamdi was taken into ICE custody after being arrested at San Francisco International Airport. Homeland Security says Hamdi entered the U.S. illegally and will be placed in immigration proceedings. The agency says he arrived in the country on a visitor visa last Sunday, October 19th, through John Wayne Airport in Orange County. The State Department's Bureau of Consular Affairs revoked Hamdi's visa on Friday, October 24th, effective immediately. And Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, confirmed the details on X, writing, quote, "It's common sense."
There's a lot of kind of complicated implications at play.
Bay Area immigration attorney Gabriel Espinosa Ramos says he expects this case to head to federal court, including immigration court proceedings and possibly an ACLU-launched lawsuit over free speech violations.
He has been very vocal about the conflict between Israel and Gaza, and Palestine. So he essentially has been critical of the U.S.'s involvement with the Israeli government in the actions going on in Palestine right now.
And that's where I want to clip, or at least finish this clip, because I want you to understand that this is essentially a part 2 of the last video I released, where I showed that the nation of Israel hired PR firms to do research on how to rehabilitate their image. And I have the receipts in that video, so you should go check it out. I will link to it. But it essentially says that the best thing that Israel can do after the genocide and having such a plummet of their image across the globe to maintain support in America is essentially to court conservatives and to trash Muslims and Islam, and to use Islam specifically to trash then Muslims and fearmonger because of the way the data that those PR firms and their research showed. Now, this brings me right here to Laura Loomer, who I featured in the last video as well. And she wrote, and just to give you, for if you haven't seen those videos or if you're new to all of this post right here at the top, I think makes the perfect introduction to Laura Loomer. No matter how hard some in the West, or some in the woke right, the woke right. Now, if you remember, Netanyahu calls it the woke Reich, and he's trying to get, saying that anyone who opposes Israel and they happen to be conservative are Nazis. Now, the sad thing is there's probably a lot of truth to that, but they're using it to spin away from and demonize people who want to be fair in treating different communities or who want America to be put first for Americans. And let's get back to the quote here, because I think that this is really important. We aren't going to be normalizing a so-called Christian Islamic alliance. Now, the issue that she writes of Islam and how people choose to either normalize this takeover or fight back will be a determining factor in who wins elections in 2026 and 2028. This is exactly about controlling people, about electoral politics. But the issue here is that because they're criminalizing speech that's critical of the nation of Israel and that focuses on the genocide that was committed against the people in Gaza, lots of people are losing their First Amendment rights. And it's not just a foreign-born journalist who's visiting the United States. Now, I want to get into this even more because, of course, Loomer decides to say, as I reported, Zohar Mamdani is tied to Sami Hamdi, the Islamic jihadist and October 7th supporter who was just arrested by ICE and is facing deportation back to the UK. On the day of his arrest, Hamdi was set to be the keynote speaker at a gala in Florida for the Islamic 501c3, as if 501c3s can be Islamic, that has endorsed Mamdani for mayor of NYC. What she's trying to say is that a 501c3 organization endorsed a candidate, which I'd have to look up what she's talking about. But anyway, now here's the part that's really important. 3 months ago, and then she mentions this guy, some kind of Twitter account, Sami Hamdi filmed an entire podcast episode in support of Zohar Mamdani and talked about how Mamdani needed to win the election in New York City because his win would be a victory for Muslims worldwide. And then notice how she does the quotes here. I'm going to highlight it for you, and how she conflates Judaism with Israel here. It would be a victory for Muslims worldwide. Now, in that last video, I talked about why the term Islamophobia is stupid, because they use this as a dog whistle to fearmonger on Muslims. Here, Loomer is just going straight for the jugular. She's just pushing anti-Muslim hate here. And then she goes, so a victory for Muslims worldwide and a death blow. Now, the words death blow are in quotes, but the rest of it isn't. A death blow in quotes to Jews. So this is a fabricated quote because she doesn't link to the clip. And she says a death blow and then adds something after it out of quotes. So she's making implications, and this is absolutely ridiculous. I think it should tell you everything you need to know about Laura Loomer. Now, let's get into how this is a part and a process of normalization that has been happening with the Trump administration for a while. We're going to go way back. And I think you guys might remember this story, but let's check it out anyway.
Meanwhile, an Iranian woman detained by federal agents, she and her family, all supporters of President Trump. See the MAGA hats. President Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf live for us in Diamond Bar. And Matthew, those Trump flags staying up tonight.
Yeah, those flags staying up. This family still supports Donald Trump despite their mom being detained. The final moments home for an Iranian woman detained by immigration agents. Thank you. A mother Monday going inside to say bye to her 4 kids.
She came and kissed the kids and that was it. That's the last time I saw her.
A proud President Trump supporting family in Diamond Bar.
The election time was here. I had a full 3-4 flags out
even while their mom faces immigration questions. Has your opinion changed on this?
That's a good question. Somewhat it has, just because I'm going through it. I was very selfish before. But what I see right now is, okay, there's a reason for it.
Arthur Sahakian's wife, Arpanay, was born in Iran and moved to the United States when she was 3 as a refugee.
She cashed a check, I believe it was less than $200, and this is all where it started.
Then, about 15 years ago, her green card was revoked over a conviction related to theft.
It's all misdemeanor stuff.
Arthur says they've been going through the legal process towards regaining citizenship with check-ins every 6 months or so.
She just went in April, and they said, okay, you're fine. Have a good day. We'll see you back in September or October.
Then last week, the United States bombed 3 nuclear sites in Iran, increasing tensions and concerns of Iranian sleeper cells retaliating in the U.S.
I'm very for of them seeing the Iranian nationals because of the sleeper cells. I understand that.
Federal sources tell Fox News that more than 130 Iranian nationals were detained in the U.S. this last week.
I think it will resolve a lot of issues because we'll know exactly who's in here for what reasons. Even though I miss her dearly, but I think we could do a better job of catch someone you see they're international and do a background real quick and see if they have ties to the community and ties to families over here and let them go.
What do you think is going to happen?
I'm under should be going to a different facility.
Arpanay speaking with us on the phone, uncertain about her future. Any regrets with your vote?
None. Still supporting.
While her family continues showing support for President Trump, hoping their mom comes home soon.
Guys, it's easy to sit there and trash this family. I see the tears in his eyes, and I almost feel like the guy, I'm trying to be charitable here. I almost feel like the guy's trying to just make an appeal to the Trump administration by staying loyal that he could get his wife back. But when your kids are crying and you're saying, gosh, but here's the thing. They say because of the $200 check that she had broke a law. And even though she was trying to get reinstated and everything and going through the process, she got caught and she got deported, or at least is in the deportation system. I didn't look up, the outcome of that case. But this was one of the first things that happened that we should have actually really looked at to say, holy smokes, they're serious about going after anyone and everyone. This is massive deportation. I mean, they promised it in the campaign trail. They should, as people, we should have known it was coming. But here's the interesting thing. When they go after their own people, when I mean their own people, I'm talking about Trump supporters, people who have been visually and vocally supporting Trump. They get to say, this isn't about race. This is about values and about legality, right? It just happens to be, for the most part, everyone who's a Trump supporter they've gone after are Black and brown people, and especially Muslims. Let's check out this next story because it's also eye-opening.
Trump burger faces deportation after an ICE arrest over an expired visa. 28-year-old Roland Beanie entered the U.S. in 2019 on a visitor visa, but did not leave by the required date in February of 2024. ICE arrested him in May and placed him in immigration proceedings. An immigration judge later granted him bond while his case moves forward. ICE emphasized that immigration enforcement applies to everyone equally, regardless of their business or politics. Trump Burger opened its Houston location last month, marking its 4th spot in our area.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that is that it gives kind of the best possible case for the Trump administration, because that was clear cut. He overstayed his visa. Wasn't necessarily a criminal. It was actually to kind of push back on some of the immigration claims, starting businesses, hiring people, providing service, paying taxes. But obviously overstayed his visa. So there was a legal case there, and didn't look like was trying to rectify that, like the wife of that Iranian guy whose wife got caught up. Now, this is where I think it needs to be a dramatic turn to being very, very alarming, because you have Stephen Miller, the architect of Trump's immigration mass deportation policies. His wife is on Piers Morgan's show and is about to threaten a naturalized citizen. Now, forgive me, I am not a huge fan of Cenk Uygur from TYT. I think he flip-flops a lot. I think he's kind of obnoxious the way he speaks to the media, always kind of yelling. And anyway, he does tend, with Palestine, of course, on the right side of things. But what we need to understand here when we see the clip is he's a naturalized citizen. Now, and this is Stephen Miller in the Trump administration, his wife talking with Cenk a naturalized U.S. citizen. And by the way, if we're talking about foreign, Piers Morgan is a UK-based talk show.
Like I say, you may not like the scale of it.
They murdered children because one of their SS soldiers was killed. And it wasn't even by Hamas. Are you kidding me, Piers? So they're occupying 53% of Gaza right now. So shouldn't they get the hell out of Gaza? So what if SS soldiers get killed and we're supposed to shed a tear for the... In reality, they murdered 36 children. They were years. I can't state the terrorism of Israel.
Yeah, but you know what, Cenk? When you call the IDF SS soldiers and you compare them directly to the Nazis, and you know they're Jews, I'm not Jewish, and I find that horrible.
No. Israel does. Hold on. Let me explain. So Israel does not get a pass on committing another genocide because Jewish people suffered the Holocaust.
Now, I played all of this because I wanted you to get the full context before Stephen Miller's wife, does what she's about to do. Here we go.
You don't get a pass. You don't get a pass for terrorism.
Hold on. So what happened to the Holocaust and all the pogroms were disgusting. Doesn't mean that Israel pretending to...
Now, it was a little hard to hear her, but she said, you better check your citizen application and hope everything was intact. And basically threatening to get him denaturalized and deported. And then she says, just like Ilham Omar, a sitting member of the United States House of Representatives, which the right are also calling for deportation and denaturalization. So here comes a naturalized American citizen who's been here for a long time criticizing Israel again. And this is getting threats from the wife of the person in charge of the Trump administration's immigration and mass immigration deportation policies. Now, it gets even crazier. And this is why I want us to really spend some time reflecting on how tribal and how we lose our sight of the forest from the trees with our tribalism in politics. This is a case of a guy. Let me just skip right to where he was from. Born and raised in West Tennessee, Buzz Hart worked as a police officer and a sheriff's deputy for 24 years, then spent another 9 with the Tennessee Department of Correction before retiring from law enforcement last year. Now, this guy was arrested for a meme. He posted a meme on Facebook. He's a white, you can see him right there, born and raised, not just a U.S. citizen, but a Southerner from Tennessee, in a little town between Memphis and Nashville, town I've driven by a few times when I would commute back and forth when I was an activist in Tennessee. And I want you to see this video story that covers this because this should scare you to death, and it should put to bed the bickering amongst the different sides about the last election. We are here now. So I'm sick and tired of hearing anyone go back and be like, oh, if y'all voted differently. We live in the really real world today. We don't live in the past, and you need to pull your heads out of your behinds and start working for what's happening now. Blaming people, blaming victims, especially when it's on a false pretense where, Sami did not cause the Muslim community to vote for Kamala, and the Muslim community's vote did not force Kamala to lose the election. None of that's even true. So let's get to what they're doing now to any critics of the Trump administration, because this should scare you and it should allow us, in fact, force us to start thinking about who our allies are or who we can at least have temporary alliances with, because the First Amendment is on a full frontal assault by the Trump administration. Don't ever let anyone who called themselves a First Amendment absolutist or someone who was a constitutionalist from the conservative side ever let you, tell you that they're, supporters of rule of law, that they're supporters of free speech, because this is ridiculous.
That breaking news, a Tennessee man jailed for more than a month for posting a President Trump meme is now free.
Yeah, of course, this comes one day after an exclusive News Channel 5 investigation raised questions about this case. Thanks for being with us. I'm Marie Johnston.
And I'm Carrie Sharp. We shared that story last night right here at 6, and now prosecutors dropped those charges against Larry Bushart today as our chief investigative reporter, Phil Williams, was continuing to dig up new information.
This all went down suddenly today in Perry County, southeast of Nashville. Local radio station WOPC was there when Bushart walked out of jail after 37 days behind bars.
How do you feel right now? Thanks to all Annie supporters out there, and very happy to be going home. I didn't seek to be a media sensation, but here we are. But yeah, that's about all I can say right now.
Now, Phil, you spoke to Mr. Bushart's wife shortly after those charges were dropped. What did she have to say?
Yeah, that's right. She was on her way from her home in Lexington to pick up her husband at the Perry County Jail, and needless to say, she was ecstatic. She says she believes it was our interview with Perry County Sheriff Nick Weems that changed everything. That's the meme that he posted, correct?
That looks like it, except this part was blurred out, the face.
This is the meme at the center of the controversy, a quote from Donald Trump, "We have to get over it," which the image notes was what the president said about the Perry High School mass shooting one day after, a reference to a tragedy in Perry, Iowa. But Larry Bushart was arrested last month and locked up on a $2 million bond after some in the community somehow claimed it was a threat to shoot up Perry County High School.
That led people to believe in our county that he's talking about Perry County High School because it doesn't say Iowa either.
But you also knew this was an existing meme that was already out there on the internet.
Correct.
And so it's clear he's not talking about Perry County High School.
We knew. The public did not know.
Sheriff Weems had also told us that Perry County asked local police in Bushart's hometown of Lexington to go talk to him, let him know the fear his post was causing, and ask him to take it down, and that Bushart had refused.
You know, parents just want to send their kids to school without being afraid that they'll get shot. I mean, what kind of person does that? What kind of person just says he don't care?
Is there a Mr. Larry that lives here? He is. I had spoken with a Perry County investigator. They wanted me to come speak with him about something.
Okay. But News Channel 5 investigators had just obtained this video from that encounter a few hours before Bushart's arrest, and the Lexington police officer seemed to have no idea why a Perry County investigator had asked police to pay a visit to the progressive Facebook warrior.
He had just called me and said that there was some concerning posts that were made on Facebook. On Facebook, yes, sir. And they did. They wanted me to come in contact with you and let you know that they may be in contact with you if they still live here. I don't know exactly what they're referring to. I knew Charlie Kirk. Well, I don't know.
Bushart had posted the meme to suggest people were more concerned about Charlie Kirk's murder than they were about school shootings. But the video shows the officer never mentioned any concerns about the school.
They said that something was insinuating violence. No, what it was. And I can't go take it. Oh, look, this ain't got nothing to do with it. You got that wrong. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Bushart's wife told me she planned to take her husband out for a nice dinner tonight since he's been eating jail food for the last 37 days. Unfortunately, because of all of this, he has lost his job as a medical driver. This is probably not the last we're going to hear of the story.
So guys, this needs to be all over our attention. They're sending the cops to people for Facebook posts. You saw in the video right there, he mentioned it was in response to Charlie Kirk. And it was the president's words. And the point of the post was that people care more about the assassination of Charlie Kirk than they do about school shootings, which is objectively true from the media coverage. But just to refresh our memories, let's see what Trump said after a school shooting. So let me get this into full screen for you.
Before going further, I want to send our support and our deepest sympathies to the victims and families touched by the terrible school shooting yesterday in Perry, Iowa. To the entire community, we love you, we pray for you, and we ask God to heal and comfort really the whole state and the pain that you have. This is something that's very unique to your state. We're really with you as much as anybody can be. It's a very terrible thing that happened, and it's just horrible to see that happening. It's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But I have to get over it. We have to move forward. We have
to get over it. We have to move forward. So and I'm going to cut in the video because I didn't pull it up. This is very close to what Trump said when he was asked how he was doing after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And he said, I'm doing great. And then he cut to speaking about his ballroom being built.
My condolences to you, sir. My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years.
But they're going to accuse him of inciting violence for a school shooting because he lives near Perry County, Tennessee, and the shooting that Trump was talking about was in Perry, in another state. Come on, that doesn't make sense. And I encourage you all to check out this article in The Intercept. It goes a lot deeper. But the thing I really want you all to pay attention to here is that this gentleman, Mr. Bushart, was placed in jail for over a month with a $2 million bond. An American citizen, a white boy from Tennessee, born and raised, a over 2 decades professional in law enforcement, both in the sheriff's department and in correctional facilities. And because he spoke out and had free speech and made political opinions that someone didn't like, he got placed in jail for over a month at a $2 million bond. The judge that put $2 million on that guy, I mean, you do a high bond because you think the guy might be a flight risk. Where's this guy going to go? He's retired, he has a wife at home, and he's from a small town in Tennessee, and he was a medical driver. I mean, he's not rolling in cash to be able to just take a private jet to some other country. Come on now. And this is my point of the whole video. If we're going to be hostile to someone from our faith community because we didn't agree with them politically before the election and say he got what he's coming, or at least imply that, telling him to survive the next Trump administration. I mean, there's so much to say about how it went down. Laura Loomer literally did a whole Twitter campaign, and then that's what got the eye of the head of DHS and why he got arrested, because he was allowed into the country, allowed to speak at an event, and then was on his way to speak at another event. And then they revoked his visa, and then they arrested him. So if he was really such a threat, he should have been on the list before he was even admitted and not admitted into the country. So it was definitely politics that got him flagged. But he's a foreign national. And then we have the case of 2 people who either overstayed their visa or who cashed a check and it was some kind of fraudulent issue, and that caused their immigration to be an issue. Now we have the wife of Stephen Miller in charge of the Trump administration's immigration policy and deportation effort, threatening a naturalized citizen on international TV. And then we finish it off with an American citizen whose politics was essentially wrongthink, according to Trump and the Trump administration. And he's in jail for a month with a $2 million bond. There is no more First Amendment if we don't stand up and fight. And the thing that Laura Loomer said, and I read from her Twitter account earlier, that the 2026 midterms and the 2028 elections need to be decided, she called it on a Christian-Muslim alliance. She's not Christian or Muslim, so it's interesting to have her talking about what will and what won't happen between Muslims and Christians. But it shouldn't be anything about religion. What it should be about is what are real American values. I've always said, the First Amendment is America's secret sauce. It's what makes us different and potentially a better place to live, than anywhere else in the world. And the Trump administration is destroying it and shredding the Constitution right in your face. You have to put the partisanship down. You have to start making principled, values-based alignments with people, and you have to center the First Amendment and the full Bill of Rights at everything with your civic engagement, with your politics, and with who you vote for. And by the way, for a lot of us, there's an election in just a few days. November 4th is around the corner. Please vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your country's future depends on it, because it does. Thank you, and God bless you. Have a great rest of your day.